Okay, for some reason I've been playing a lot of Salmon Run, Splatoon 3, and I would like to make a little bit of a tier list of what I think about the bosses, because they added quite a few new bosses. And I've played up to Professional +3 now. I've got a lot of games in here. I just wanted to talk about my thoughts on some of these bosses because I was just thinking about them a lot, especially some of the returning bosses and whatever. I just want to give my opinions on them. I haven't really seen many of these kind of videos, so I'll throw this out there. I'm just going to go in order with what I've uploaded here. I had to make this tier list because no one had made a tier list with the new bosses yet. Number one, we'll start with the new bosses. I think the fish stick is manageable, right? It's not free because you have to climb up to the top of it to get the eggs in the first place, and some weapons are just not suited for that. Like the blaster has a lot of trouble going up there. But what's manageable about it is that you can often just sort of pick off the small guys from the floor. You don't really have to climb the tower to kill them. Like a blaster can kill the little fish guys super easily from the floor, but climbing up the tower, different story. They really don't do that much. They spread a little ink like a sprinkler. But they're not really very directly threatening. It's really just like, okay, we'll get to the fish stick if we have time. The fish stick's not too threatening. There are way more bosses that you want to deal with first. And it's also a stationary boss, doesn't attack you directly. I have yet to be killed by one. I'm not sure if you can. I'm sure you could if like one of the sprinkler bits hits you and you're on like 1 HP, but it's not too difficult of a boss to worry about. When you see it, honestly, it gives you a bit of an escape route with the wall it leaves behind sometimes. I've definitely used the fish stick to escape other bosses' attacks. But yeah, they're pretty manageable. Not really scared when a fish stick comes in. And the flipper flopper, my favorite new salmon boss, is going in the free eggs category. This thing is just so easy to ink that circle under it. Like even amidst like horrid chaos, you just like pop over for like 1 second, spray like a couple pieces, and it's done. And it's one of those bosses that follows you around, so it usually ends up getting incapacitated near the basket too. So it comes to the basket, you pop the eggs in. It's a really easy boss to just take care of. Very, very easy boss. The Salmon Lid, I'm gonna put these in order in the tier too. So I think the Salmon Lid is manageable as well. It's almost in the threat if left alone category. Almost. Here's why. So a lot of the time I've noticed that Salmon Lids like to come in like pairs. I often see them in like 2s or 3s. It's very rare that I really see like one Salmon Lid on the stage. A lot of the times there's just like 2 of them. And a big problem with them is that they like to just stay stationary a lot of the time, which is a really big issue. Like I know one of the first games I had, a Salmon Lid decided it wanted to just hang at the edge of the water, so it was really hard for us to get in there and bait it because it was right on the fucking edge of the water and it doesn't move at all. So you in order to deal with a situation like that, you need a weapon that can just attack it directly. This is why I'm also putting it in manageable, is because you don't have to get it to slam down and bait it out to actually kill it. You can just shoot the guy on top directly if you have a weapon with long enough reach, which someone is bound to have. Because going under it to getting it to slam is honestly not safe at all, because it spawns salmonids from underneath it. A lot of the times you'll go under there to try and like bait it out, and one of the spawned salmonids will whack you, and then you'll just get crushed because you got your movement disrupted. But otherwise, they're not too bad. Because they don't move or track you or anything, and don't follow you around, and don't really directly attack you, they're just there. And sometimes they can even help you. Like I just had one of the last games I played today, there was a Steelhead underneath the Salmon Lid, and getting the Salmon Lid to slam down actually killed the Steelhead instantly, which was very helpful. They're pretty manageable boss. Nothing too crazy. And same thing, a lot of the new bosses really not that bad. Big Shot, he could move down, but I'm going to put him into the threat if left alone category. I know it might seem like that's high because this boss really doesn't even attack you directly with himself. He just shoots the cannonballs that make the shockwaves. And one of them by themselves is fine. You can pretty much ignore him for a little while, but you don't want to, because once like 2 or 3 of them start piling onto the same cannon, and you start getting those multiple layers of shockwaves out there, you're pretty much done. Like that's a party wipe right there. Especially I've noticed I play a lot of the freelance mode, and a lot of people don't seem to notice the shockwaves a lot. I just see people running right into them, not jumping over the shockwaves, and just not understanding what's going on. And I feel like a big issue with this boss right now is that it's hard to tell where this boss is. Like sometimes you see the cannonball there, the shockwaves are going off, and you're like, oh shit, there's a big shot. I don't know where, because it's not like it's not like the Stinger where they're really tall, so you can just look around and see them. They're usually hidden behind a lot of like the terrain. The big shots are, because they're way smaller. So it's sort of hard to gauge where he is at this moment. But once you find him and kill him, it's fantastic. I just had a game today where I killed a big shot and a bunch of other bosses spawned right next to me. I killed them all, and I threw 15 eggs into his cannon, shot him to the basket, and we like killed the quota. Killed the quota. So he's a really like he can be a really chaotic boss, and he can be a really helpful boss to your party. It just depends on how fast you find him, how fast you kill him, how many there are. If you leave him alone and 2 or 3 of them get on the cannon, you're pretty fucked. But otherwise, not too bad of a boss. He's pretty easy to deal with. I put the Griller on here, and the reason I put the Griller on here, not like the Mudmouths and all that shit, is because those are more like, and the Goldies, those are more like sort of passive, incidental things. And the Griller is more of like an actual like boss that you have to take down. The Griller I am going to put into... I'm not sure if I want to put it in threat or very hard. I'm going to put it in very hard, and here's why. Honestly, the reason I was considering putting it in threat, if left alone, is because of that. Like, if you don't kill, like, the single Griller that's on the stage fast enough, and they start piling on 2, 3 Grillers, and you haven't killed any of them, then you're pretty much fucked. Like, you're just done. But the reason I'm putting it in very hard to deal with is just because of its one-hit kill capabilities. Like I just had a game yesterday where, like, we killed like 2 Grillers, right? There was tons of eggs right next to the basket. We all went for the eggs. It was the last second of the match. A Griller came out of the water behind us. Boom, killed all of us in one hit on the last second. Big mistake on our part, but still, like, they can end a run really, really fast if you're not careful, if you're not spread out, if you're not using your movement properly, you know, because they can't climb steps or drop-offs. So if you just hop across like some gaps, you can dodge them a little bit like that. But once like 1, 2 people die, it gets a little chaotic, and there's a couple Grillers. It's hard to deal with, and a lot of people seem to really have trouble figuring out where the weak point is on them. But yeah, they're difficult bosses because they have the potential to just run over and one-hit kill your entire team. But otherwise, they're not the worst. They're not the worst, not by a long shot. They require teamwork, but I would rather take the Griller over some of these other bosses, to be honest. Okay, Steelheads. I am putting Steelheads into threat if left alone. I often put myself on like duty dealing with the Steelheads because I find that a lot of other people seem to ignore them. And look, Steelheads, I feel like people ignore them because they don't really like directly attack you. You know, you can just like sort of swim next to it and around it, and it won't really hurt you. It's just the bag that it launches, right? So it doesn't seem that threatening, and they're a little pain in the ass to kill if you don't have a ranged weapon. But if you leave the Steelhead alone, I've had a lot of runs like end and get overrun just because someone left a Steelhead alone and another Steelhead showed up. And now we have 2 Steelheads that everyone's ignoring that are just launching bags all around the basket, And it's just like, and it just limits your movement super, super, super hard. Any bosses that really limit your movement are powerful. Steelhead, you see it, just get rid of it. Just get rid of it and we're fine. It's not hard to kill. But I will say, one of the things that makes it annoying to deal with is that if you don't kill it in one cycle, you have to wait for it to like hawk up its bag again. And that can be a pain in the ass, because you can be sitting there waiting to kill this boss for like an extra 5 seconds, which I understand. But really not that bad by himself, but if you leave him alone for too long, he can ruin a game pretty fast. Okay, Steel Eel. Steel Eel, again, I'm putting in this tier. Threat if left alone. Come on, there we go. For a lot of the same reasons as the Steelhead. The Steel Eel is not directly threatening by itself, but if it's not dealt with fast, it just starts, you know, cutting the terrain in half, just splatting people against the walls, and then like another Steel Eel shows up. And even the Steel Eel in combination with the other guys is what really makes it really dangerous, because the Steel Eel is walking around restricting movement, and then, okay, now there's a Steelhead bag next to you too, and it's like, oh fuck. Or now there's a SALMONID in the only escape path where the Steel Eel isn't at. Or now there's big shot shockwaves while you're dodging the Steel Eel, and plus the Steel Eel homes in on somebody. It's obnoxious. I've had a lot of deaths where someone is being homed in on by the Steel Eel. I'm sitting in the corner. They run up to me, and then the Steel Eel pushes us both in the water. It's like, dude, why did you do that? They're really, like, honestly, a lot of the times they're kind of easy eggs if you can just see where they're spawning and take care of them as soon as possible. But if they're allowed to persist for more than like 5 seconds, they can really fuck everything up. They can make everything super claustrophobic super fast. They're a high I don't want to make them seem like they're like a middling threat. They're definitely a very, very high priority target, but they're not like game ending if they're there for like 10 seconds. It's really only if they're allowed to persist where they become a super, super big threat. The car is free eggs. Usually free eggs. The only time where the car usually presents a problem is if you're like it cornered you at like the water or something, or you're trying to get around it in a narrow hall. That's the only time the car can really fuck you up. Or if there's multiple cars next to you, that can really fuck you up. But otherwise, the car is pretty easy. You can stop its movement completely for a long time. It often wanders near the basket, so you just get free 3 eggs to throw in there. The car's not that bad. Pretty simple, easy to deal with. The Stinger, I am putting in very hard to deal with. I would rather fight a Griller than a Stinger, to be honest. The Stinger, the biggest problem with the Stinger is that it's really only like shooters and blasters that can deal with them super effectively. Everything else that goes to deal with these things is taken out like one pot at a time, and it's really slow to deal with. So what usually happens with the Stinger, and obviously the biggest thing about the Stinger is that it usually spawns like on the opposite side of the map on the shore. So what usually happens is it spawns on the other side of the map. Before anyone can even get to it, it's already firing off at least 1 laser. And then a lot of the times, your team just sort of ignores it, because it's only targeting 1 person, so it's hard to like understand that it's a threat since it's only targeting one of your teammates. And it's like, oh well, it's not shooting me right now, so I'm not gonna deal with it. And it's like, well, it's annoying because it's shooting me, so it's hard for me to deal with it. You know? So a lot of the times, just people don't deal with it that fast, and then what happens is like a second one shows up, or in conjunction with the other Salmonids. A Stinger just becomes very difficult to deal with. It's really hard to dodge Stinger fire when like a Steel Eel is flying around, or paths are being blocked by the SALMONID. It just becomes a nightmare to traverse when one player is being targeted by the Stinger. And and especially in their panic, they just bring the Stinger fire into the rest of the team. Stingers are one of these things where as soon as you see that it's coming on the field, you have to go deal with it. If you have a shooter or blaster, you need to go deal with this, right? You're the only person who's very equipped to deal with this. And if the person who has a shooter or blaster on your team is not dealing with it, then you're gonna have to go do it by yourself. Like, you really are. I've had to knock these things down with rollers before. It sucks, yes, but you gotta get rid of these things. They are extremely dangerous. A lot of my deaths are from Stingers, man. Hate Stingers. Moz is free eggs. Not as free as the car, I feel like. You know what? No. He's more free than the car. Because all you have to do for the Moz is throw the bomb in his mouth, and that's just a free 3 eggs, instant kill. The car, you have to like sort of stop and go around and whatever. Moz can be dangerous. If your movement is being limited and there's a lot of enemy ink on the field, Moz can get pretty deadly. Like anytime I've died by Moz, it's usually because I just don't have anywhere to go. I have no escape route. I have like a really slow weapon, and there's nowhere else to go. There's all enemy ink everywhere. But otherwise, you just throw the bomb, you break him, you get 3 free eggs. He often goes near the basket. Easy. He's usually easy to deal with. You see a Moz, that's always good. Okay, yeah, we saved the best for last over here. Okay, I'm going to talk about the Flyfish first, because I have some big opinions on the Drizzler. Flyfish is in pure pain, obviously. I don't think anyone's surprised by that. The Flyfish is the most obnoxious enemy in the entire game. The only way to defeat the Flyfish is to throw a bomb in both of its baskets, which is... The problem is, a bomb takes up a lot of ink. And they usually spawn on like the outskirts, like where a lot of enemies are at. So what happens a lot of times is that you throw your bomb, and then you turn around and there's a bunch of salmonids that you have to deal with, and you're almost out of ink. And then at this point, you're like, okay, well I can't recharge and get the other basket, so he's gonna live for another fucking 10 seconds, because you can't hit him at all when his baskets are closed. So unless you really have like 2 people there who are coordinated enough to throw them in the separate baskets, you're probably not going to kill him in one cycle. If you're fast enough by yourself. But it's very difficult to deal with and everything else. And besides that, he's going to get, even if you kill him in like one cycle, he's most likely going to get some missile shots off anyway. And it really only takes like 1 to 2 direct hits to really kill you, and a couple of the splash hits. Like, there's been so many times I've died from the Flyfish where just, like, the splashes, I've been trying to dodge, like, the missiles, and the splashes, like, the AoE damage from them just kills you. It's so annoying. They have full tracking for the entire stage. They can target multiple people at the same time. They are extremely dangerous. And the biggest problem with them is that killing them doesn't really help that much, because it just allows another one to spawn. I know at the end of Splatoon 2, the meta was really, especially for the higher ranks and professional, was just to like take out the, I think it was I think it was taking out the right basket. I could be wrong on that. It was taking out one of the baskets, because one of the baskets targets one player, I think, and one of them targets random players. You take out one of the baskets and just sort of leave it there, so it only can shoot off like 2 missiles. Because if you killed it, it would just spawn more Flyfish, which was not ideal. A crippled Flyfish is better than a non-crippled Flyfish, so just insane to deal with. They can hit you anywhere. They're really fucking annoying, because when the other salmonids restrict your movement, you just get splatted by the missiles, and vice versa. They're just insane to deal with all around. Hard to kill, invulnerable for long periods of time. Fuck this enemy. The only way around it is to like use I think the Explosher on the middle, and like the Stinger on the middle, but the Stinger doesn't exist anymore in 3 as a special, so fuck me. You know? The Flyfish got even more hard to deal with. So, good luck with the Flyfish. I'm sorry I keep ranting about the Flyfish, but just people ignore them so much. Like, you go a whole game with a Flyfish just hanging out there, and honestly, I don't blame people, because you just don't have time to sit there and deal with these fucking enemies. They're awful. Okay, and now I'm going to move on to the Drizzler. This might be a hot take, I think the Drizzler is the most annoying enemy in the entire game to deal with, and I will tell you why. The Drizzler is invulnerable for extremely long periods of time. It takes him 2 cycles before he moves and like does like the hover thing where he's vulnerable while moving, which is a long time. And the only other times he's vulnerable is when after he shoots off his missile that launches the rain cloud. Big problems with this is that after he shoots off the missile, if you just attack him directly as like one person by yourself, you'll usually come up short like 1 or 2 shots. So you'll have to sit through another cycle. So you need like another person on you to really guarantee that he's dead, which is already annoying. Now you can go around this and kill him in 1 shot if you reflect his missile back at him. I feel like a lot of people don't know this. I barely see anyone do it online. And I only learned it myself like a couple weeks ago, to be honest with you. That you can shoot the missile that he shoots back at him, and that'll kill him in 1 hit. Which is amazing. Great. It helps deal with him a lot better. Big problem, though, is that you have to shoot it back at a straight on angle toward him. If you like just walk up to the missile and like hit it and it flies off, and it'll go, the missile will fly in the direction that you hit it. So hitting the missile does not guarantee that he's gonna die. Hitting the missile just guarantees that there's no rain cloud, which is also ideal. So what happens is that, and also the missile is invulnerable for like half of it until it reaches like the end of its launch. So you need a lot of space and a good angle. You need like a really long space and a good angle in order to fucking reflect this back to kill him in 1 hit, which is really hard to set up in all the chaos and like get prepared for that. So what usually happens is that he fires off the missile. Nobody hits the missile down. And if you yourself recognize the missile and you hit it down and you're not able to hit it back into him, because you waste your time with the missile, you're not going to kill him in this cycle, so he's going to get another one off. And now you have to do that same thing for that fucking missile too. So it ends up that it usually takes like 2 to 3 cycles to kill these things because they're just so invulnerable so many of the time, and they're not vulnerable long enough for you to really kill them efficiently. And it takes so much space and so much time and a pretty good amount of skill to actually reflect the missile back at him. I just feel like this boss has a very unobvious weakness. Number one, a very powerful attack in the Drizzler. The Drizzler can kill people very easily who are amidst the chaos. It just ticks your health down, restricts your movement. It's a very powerful attack to even get off. That's why you don't want the cloud up at all costs. But I feel like I've explained it enough, man. He's just really difficult. He restricts your movement. It does damage. He's invulnerable a lot of the time. He's really hard to kill, and the only way to one-shot kill him is very situational and not hard to pull off and not obvious at all to people who aren't educated on the subject. He's it's like the that's what I'm saying. It's like the Flyfish. I feel like people underrate this boss because he doesn't deal as much damage as something like the Flyfish, but I feel like the effects that come off from him, the restricted movement, the damage over time, are just so bad. In a mode where movement is life, where not moving equals death, I feel like this enemy just destroys. It absolutely destroys. This enemy is the worst. And if there's like 2 or 3 of them, it's just game right there. This is a very difficult enemy to deal with. Very difficult enemy to deal with. Hardest enemy to kill in the entire roster. But yeah, that's gonna about do it. This is my opinions. Fuck the Drizzlers, fuck the Flyfish, and fuck the Stingers too. Everything else, you just gotta deal with it as it comes, and hope your team knows what they're doing. But those 3 enemies up top, fuck them. Remove them from the game, please. Alright, I know it's a little bit of a rant. There was no script, I'm sure you could tell. 24 minutes of me just rambling about these fucking fish. But I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you think. I would like to see what you guys think about the Salmonids. What's your ranking? Do you have the same problems with the Drizzler? Do you find any of the new ones hard? I mean, I feel like the SALMONID could move up eventually, but otherwise, I feel like the new Salmonids aren't too difficult to deal with. But let me know. I would like to hear some opinions. I want more people talking about Salmon Run, man. I want more people talking about Salmon Run. Salmon Run's so fun. Anyway, I'll catch you later. Bye.